18 Cup season wins. He truly was a legend on the track.
But those of us here in North
Earlier, we spoke with Paul Kirby. He witnessed a shooting along with his wife and his children. Paul Kirby.
We turn now to President Trump's latest attacks on Somali immigrants in Minnesota. About 84,000.
Is humanity being awakened or judged? Folks, the world just doesn't run in the familiar old way anymore. It's shaking, crashing, and steaming like a pressure cooker about to blow. From streets in Europe burning with protests to Asia on edge over wars, from skies over America where death comes out of nowhere, to the dark corners full of corruption deep under the ground in Minnesota, everything is screaming at once. Do you feel it? Or are you still scrolling through the news like it's somebody else's problem? What's happening isn't just hot stories, it's thunderclaps one after another, hard hits straight to the conscience of mankind. The Bible warned about it. Famines, wars, persecution, moral decay coming fast and furious like the final labor pains. Today, we're going to go through 7 shocking news items one by one, peeling back the layers of truth to see clearly what's shaking this earth. Get yourself ready, because this isn't a video just for fun. This could be the warning that humanity's time isn't long. Very likely, those veils of truth waiting for you up ahead are the messages God wants to send you. So don't miss a single piece of news. And now, without making you wait any longer, let's dig deep into each event and the meaning of the message it carries. 1. Thousands of farmers surround Brussels in revolt against European communism. Brussels was plunged into chaos in the early morning hours. The capital of the European Union was no longer a place for quiet meetings and cold agreements. Instead, it turned into a real battlefield as thousands of farmers poured in, bringing huge roaring tractors that crushed the usual order. Fires shot up high. Black smoke rolled into the gray sky, like the land itself was angry and demanding to be heard. What are we seeing here? This isn't just an ordinary protest anymore. It's an explosion of desperation. Farmers from France, Belgium, the Netherlands, and many other countries rushed to Brussels, turning the wide streets into a sea of steel and wheels. They didn't bring weapons, but they carried the fear of losing their land, their way of life, their future, as the EU-Mercosur deal opens the door wide for cheap goods to flood in and squeeze their family traditions dry. The air was thick with the smell of gas, burning tires, and raw anger. Tractors blocked every way into the EU headquarters. Fires were lit right in the squares, and tall columns of black smoke stood like a challenge. Police hit back with water cannons and tear gas, spraying like a downpour. But the crowd didn't scatter. Around 10,000 people stayed put, chanting support for the farmers, making Brussels shake like it was having a fit. In the middle of all that mess, words from the Bible echoed like a cold whisper. Matthew 24:7 says, "For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines and earthquakes in various places." This uprising isn't just about policy fights. It's a sign of the final birth pains when the old order starts to crack. Then even darker pictures come from Revelation 6:5-6. When the Lamb opened the third seal, I looked, and there was a black horse. Its rider was holding a pair of scales in his hand, a quart of wheat for a denarius. The black horse of famine and economic unfairness seems to be galloping across Europe. You and I can't help but think of these farmers crying for help, forced to weigh every single grain. Some say it's just a trade dispute. Others call it communism in disguise, wearing the clothes of globalization. But when millions of people are pushed into a system they can't control, when land is priced like cheap goods, it's no longer just economic theory. It's a fierce clash between greed and survival. Clearly, the Lord is letting the curtain be pulled back. These farmers in Brussels aren't just fighting for their fields, They've unintentionally become the cry from the earth rising up to heaven. And if Europe keeps shaking like this, the question hangs in the air. When the foundations collapse, what will rise next from the shadows? 2. Japan speaks out about wanting nuclear weapons, with a bold message and challenge from Asia. We can only rely on ourselves. A tough, no-nonsense statement just came out of Tokyo that's got all of Asia on edge. Japan, the country that still lives with the shadow of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, has suddenly broken its long silence. In the end, we can only rely on ourselves. It's a short sentence, but it's enough to shake up the balance in the region. Japan, the nation that swore never to touch nuclear weapons again, is now talking about how we can only rely on ourselves. It doesn't sound like a big announcement, more like an admission that they're backed into a corner. For you and for us, this isn't just dry politics. It's a sign of growing fear in a changing world. After World War II, Japan lived under the long shadow of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, holding tight to its 3 non-nuclear principles like a final moral line. But now, with North Korean missiles flying overhead, China stepping up its military pressure, and alliances looking shaky, that line is starting to fade. Defense spending is shooting up, closed-door talks are happening more often, and what used to be off-limits is now out in the open. In a short press briefing, the words came out with clear meaning. This isn't something you can buy quick, and it's not a brand new idea. Those words spread fast across Asia, sparking heated debate inside Japan. People are split between the peaceful constitution and fears for survival, while China hit back hard, calling it a return to militarism. America's silence right now just makes things look more suspicious. Matthew 24:6 says, "You will hear of wars and rumors of wars. Don't be alarmed, for these things must happen, but the end is not yet." Those rumors of wars aren't vague whispers anymore. They're taking shape in strategies, warheads, and quiet decisions. Then Revelation 9:17-18 comes to mind, with its terrifying picture. From their mouths came fire, smoke, and sulfur. By these 3 plagues, a third of mankind was killed. Those ancient words suddenly match up in a scary way with today's nuclear talk. Fire, smoke, sulfur. They're not distant symbols anymore. They could be real. Some folks have spoken up, arguing it's just one person's opinion, not official policy yet. Others say Japan has no choice but to defend itself. But when the country that still carries atomic scars starts thinking about going down that road, the question isn't just for Tokyo. It's for the whole world, for you and for us. Clearly, the Lord is letting these rumors of wars get louder and clearer. And when life or death choices are made in quiet rooms, the scariest part isn't the explosion. It's the moment before, when we still think we're in full control. 3. A horrifying moment. Plane-carrying NASCAR racer Greg Biffle crashes into the ground, family shattered at Statesville Airport. No warning siren had time to sound, no chance to turn back. In just a few short seconds, a calm morning sky turned into a blazing hell. Have you ever wondered how fast everything you love can vanish in one single moment? On the morning of December 18, 2025, at the small Statesville Airport in North Carolina, a Cessna C-550 plunged to the ground like it was yanked from the sky. It wasn't a bad landing, not a minor bump. It was a direct crash, exploding and burning up everything left inside the cabin. On board were Greg Biffle, the legendary NASCAR driver, along with his wife and kids, a family, a private flight, a trip that seemed so routine. Just a few feet from the runway, it all ended. Statesville, usually so quiet, suddenly became the center of grief and shock. Eyewitnesses stood frozen as they watched a fireball shoot up dozens of feet, with black smoke swallowing the sky over the airport's more than 700 acres. It dropped like a rock, one person said in a shaky voice. Condolences poured in from the NASCAR world, from Jeff Gordon to Kyle Busch, but no words can fill the emptiness left by that family. This isn't just an accident, it's a direct hit to the heart of America. With aviation incidents on the rise, this tragedy feels like a bigger crack in an already troubled picture. The sky, once thought to be safe, now seems frightening. The Bible warns in Luke 21 that people will be scared out of their wits by things coming from the heavens. Looking at that moment when the plane burst into flames, it's hard not to feel a chill. Life is so fragile that one wrong beat and all our securities disappear. Some point to Psalm 91, talking about angels guarding us on every path. But that very thing raises a tougher question. What happens when people live far from God? When faith gets replaced by overconfidence and false control? Debate erupted right away. One side says it's just a technical failure, weather, or human error, a random tragedy in cold statistics. The other side sees a clear warning, too many coincidences happening at once to call it chance. And the question hangs there, unanswered. Is this just a heartbreaking accident or another wake-up call ringing from the sky? When death comes down that fast, how much time do we really have left to get ready? If the sky isn't as safe as we thought, then where is our true refuge? Stay tuned for the next update. Because this time, the shock isn't coming from above, but from the most sacred place. 4. An old American church, lit up with blue, red, purple, and yellow lights, turned into a lively music stage. I've stood in that church before, when the only light came from the stained glass windows and the prayers were soft, like quiet breathing. Every stone, every arched ceiling carried the history of faith, of generations kneeling in silence. And now, today, that same place glows bright like a concert stage. Beams of blue, red, purple, and yellow lights sweep across the old vaulted ceiling, bouncing off statues that once had candles lit for prayer. Music booms loud, clapping mixes with cheers. I stood there, not angry at first, but with a deep sadness over a sacred beauty changing shape right in front of me. In America, this isn't rare anymore. New laws about using religious spaces allow churches to be repurposed if the congregation shrinks and they can't keep it going. With budgets running low, many dioceses have to choose between closing forever or opening up in a different way. The law sides with saving the building, not necessarily keeping it holy. Those who support it make good points. They say it's better to let the church live on as an art space than let it fall apart empty. They say the lights and music bring young people back in, even if not for prayer, at least to walk through the doors. To them, this is adapting, not betraying. But from where I'm watching, I see a line getting blurred. When a place once set aside for God turns into entertainment, the question isn't just, is it legal? But is there still reverence? Which side would you take? Save it at any cost, or keep it holy even if it means closing the doors? The Bible doesn't stay quiet on this. In 2 Timothy 3:1-2, the warning is clear. In the last days, there will be tough times. People will be unloving and not respectful toward God. When folks put convenience and feelings above reverence, faith slowly gets replaced by performance. Revelation 18:2 hits even harder, describing a place once noble but turned unclean, not because the stone walls changed, but because its purpose did. Worldly lights won't make the building fall down, but they might quietly drive the spirit away. This debate isn't simple. One side says it's the last way to save religious heritage. The other says better to lose the building than lose respect for God. Neither side is quiet, and neither is backing down. When the line between sacred and everyday gets thin, it's up to each of us. What will we choose for the future of faith? And if churches here on earth can change roles so fast, what's waiting for human faith when it drifts from God to chase other horizons? The next story will take us off the ground, straight up to the stars. 5. Scientists announce the spaceship Heart of Gold is ready to fly to Mars. Breaking news just came out that's left both the science and religious communities stunned. SpaceX has confirmed that the Starship spacecraft, named Heart of Gold, is complete and ready for its mission to Mars as early as 2026. It's a huge leap forward in technology, but it also raises big questions about where humanity is headed in these troubled times. Maybe you're feeling the strangeness of this moment too, with wars, natural disasters, and crises of faith all around on Earth. People are looking up to the red sky of Mars. Is this just pure scientific progress, or is it some kind of instinct to find an escape route? From Boca Chica, Texas, the plans to conquer Mars are being talked about again with real determination. Heart of Gold is designed to be hundreds of feet long, with speeds up to 5 miles per second, starting with cargo and later carrying people. This isn't science fiction anymore, it's real engineering taking shape. In the test videos, the ship lifts off the pad like an arrow, becoming a symbol of the dream to live on multiple planets. Supporters see it as a long-term way for humans to survive, in case Earth can't support us anymore. From a scientific view, there's solid reasoning behind that. But when you look at this in the bigger picture, other voices start speaking up. The Bible says in Psalm 115-16 that the heavens are the heavens of the Lord, but the earth he has given to the children of men. For some believers, leaving Earth isn't just exploration, it's a sign of pride and going astray. On the other side, there are folks who believe science doesn't clash with God. They say human intelligence is a gift from heaven, and reaching out to the universe is how we use that gift. In their eyes, science doesn't replace faith. It helps us understand God's creation better. The debate quickly splits into two sides. One praises Heart of Gold as a new symbol of hope for mankind. The other worries it's an escape mentality, where we try to leave Earth instead of fixing what's broken here. Both sides have good points, and neither is completely wrong. Revelation 21:1 talks about a new heaven and a new earth, created by God himself, not with metal or rocket engines. But the Bible doesn't forbid exploring the universe either. The real question is the motive. Are we exploring to honor God's work, or to avoid our responsibilities on Earth? As someone just reporting the news, all we can do is note this. Heart of Gold is a major scientific milestone, and at the same time, it's a mirror reflecting the deep unease of our era. When people look to the stars, they're also quietly asking questions about their own future, and that question still hangs in the air. If one day humans really set foot on Mars, will it be a triumph for science, or a sign that we've lost faith in the home God gave us? 6. The horrifying shooting at a church in Michigan. Innocent victims, driven by religious hate. An emergency news alert cut through the quiet night in America like a knife to the heart. A church under attack, people praying, suddenly falling, flames rising in the sanctuary. This wasn't a battlefield or a riot. It was a place that was supposed to be safe and peaceful. In Grand Blanc Township, Michigan, a Sunday service turned into a nightmare. The attacker drove his truck into the LDS church, opened fire, and then set it ablaze, leaving at least 4 people dead and many others hurt. Those innocent lives had no chance to escape, no time to even understand what was happening. This wasn't just an act of violence, it was a mockery of faith with blood and fire. The church building burned to the ground, but the real damage came first: the loss of that sense of safety for the whole community. When a place of worship becomes a target, it tears apart the basic trust in our society. The FBI confirmed it was motivated by religious hatred, not random, not some meaningless outburst. This is part of a growing wave of hate, where faith is ridiculed and believers are seen as fair game. We can't just look away. The Bible makes it clear in Matthew 24:9 that those who follow the Lord will be handed over to suffer and even killed for his name. Those words aren't just on old pages anymore. They're coming alive in today's news. Persecution isn't knocking from far away. It's walked right into the sanctuary. 2 Timothy 3:12 says that anyone who wants to live a godly life will face persecution. The heartbreaking part is that the victims aren't just statistics, Their shattered families, kids who lost parents, communities with scars that won't heal easily. Feeling sorrow comes naturally, but staying silent doesn't. Even so, arguments broke out right away. Some say it was just one troubled person's actions, and we shouldn't tie it to religion. Others blame social pressures, mental illness, or political divisions. Those points sound reasonable, but they dodge the truth that's already been confirmed. Anti-religious hate was real here. The most dangerous excuse is calling it an isolated incident, because when we label it that way, we let it happen again. When we downplay it, we end up helping the cruelty continue. We can't let our conscience go quiet while the blood is still fresh. So where do we stand in a moment like this? Do we see it as a wake-up call about faith being persecuted? Or do we keep finding ways to explain it away so we don't have to face the hard truth? Our silence today, what will it say tomorrow? If a church can be burned because of hate, what's next for the other values we have left in society? Let's think about that and get ready, because the final news might hit those in power where corruption could force God to step in. 7. Tim Walz in a panic as FBI raids Somali Health Services building after billions in Medicaid fraud come to light. Shocking news just out of Minnesota has quickly spread across the whole country. The FBI has confirmed they raided a building registered as a health services facility for the Somali community after big questions came up about widespread Medicaid fraud. This happened on December 18, 2025, and it right away shook up local politics. From the records released, Minnesota is one of the states that spends the most on Medicaid in the U.S., with around $18 billion a year. Federal prosecutors say a good chunk of that is now under investigation for signs of organized fraud tied to fake in-home care services and medical travel claims. The raid was on a place called Ultimate Home Health Services in the Minneapolis area. The FBI took financial documents, computer servers, and questioned some suspects. Officials stress this is still just the investigation stage, and no final decisions have been made about anyone's guilt or political blame. Right after, arguments broke out. Some political opponents accused the state government, led by Governor Tim Walz, of not watching closely enough and letting the fraud go on for too long. Former President Donald Trump openly called Minnesota a hot spot for money laundering and pushed for leaders to be held accountable. On the other side, Democrats and Somali community groups pushed back hard. They say linking this to a whole community or making it political is unfair and risky. To them, if there's wrongdoing, it's just a few people or a small group, and it should be handled by the law without turning it into politics. Legal experts point out that similar Medicaid fraud cases have happened in other states, showing it's more about weak spots in the system than just Minnesota. They urge everyone to wait for the official court outcomes and not judge too soon while the probe is going on. In all this, some religious commentators see it differently. 2 Timothy 3-2:4 talks about times when people are ruled by greed and lies, and Revelation 18 describes a rich system falling because of corruption. These Bible verses aren't pointing fingers at anyone specific, but remind us of moral rules that go beyond politics. What's worth noting is the debate isn't just about legal right or wrong. It's also about ethics in running things, oversight duties, and being open with public money. When billions of dollars are involved, people's trust gets hurt the easiest. Right now, the investigation is still going. No final rulings yet, and all sides say they'll work with federal authorities. The truth, whatever it turns out to be, is coming out step by step. And the big question left open is, if these claims prove true, is this just a huge financial crime, or another sign that our human systems are showing their deepest cracks? And that's it. We just went through 7 hot news stories from around the world, each one packed with messages that God wants to send to humanity. And which one of these hit you the hardest, shocked you, or made you the angriest? Share it in the comments below so everyone can hear. When you put these 7 events side by side, they're no longer just scattered news stories. They fit together into one big chaotic picture, full of cracks, where nature is shaking, society is turned upside down, morals are wobbling, and power is being exposed. It's not just stuff happening somewhere else anymore, it's a chain reaction that's spreading. 7 events, 7 different slices, but they all share the same uneasy heartbeat, from strange signs in the sky to the ground trembling, from financial systems cracking to trust in society wearing thin. Everything's coming fast and furious, like the world's being pushed forward in a hurry. Have you ever wondered why big events don't seem to happen decades apart anymore, but just months, weeks, or even days? Have you ever felt like time is moving faster, heavier, and every new headline brings a deep sense of unease? What's worth noting is that these 7 events don't just touch one area. They hit all 3 main pillars: nature, people, and systems. When all 3 shake at the same time, it's not just a local crisis, it's a sign that things are getting out of control. The Bible described this exact state. In Matthew 24:6-8, Jesus warned that before the end, there would be the beginning of birth pains. And he said clearly, "You will hear of wars and rumors of wars. Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of birth pains." These 7 recent events feel like those first contractions. Not the end yet, but strong enough to wake people up. They're not meant to scare, but to make us look again. What's going wrong? And who's really in charge of our lives? When cheating, corruption, lies, and power grabs get exposed in the open, there's no room left for staying neutral on what's right or wrong. Systems might hide people, but truth doesn't. Whatever gets dragged into the light always has a bigger purpose. Ephesians 5:13 puts it plain, "But everything exposed by the light becomes visible, and everything that is illuminated becomes a light." The light doesn't come to destroy, it comes to reveal. And when that revealing happens on a global scale, it's time for people to choose. Have you noticed how, lately, the line between right and wrong gets blurrier in the media, but clearer in the consequences? Things that used to seem normal are starting to collapse, layer by layer. Not because people suddenly got better, but because there's no time left to keep hiding it. Revelation 12:12 explains why everything feels so rushed. "But woe to the earth, for the devil has come down to you in great wrath, because he knows that his time is short." When time gets cut short, the intensity ramps up. That's a rule that works not just spiritually, but shows up clear as day in our world today. So these 7 events aren't the destination, they're signals. They're like mile markers on the road, showing that humanity is entering the final stretch of a long journey. Nobody knows the exact day or hour, but the pace is getting obvious. Daniel 12:4 foretold it. "Many will rush here and there, and knowledge will increase." Information today floods in so fast we can't even digest it, but real understanding is scarce. People know more facts, but have less peace. And right in that gap, the Bible's message hits home, not by forcing it, but by the cold match between what's written and what's happening. When the 2 pictures line up, curiosity turns to concern, and concern leads to the bigger question. The question isn't, "Is this real?" anymore. It's, "Where do I stand in all this?" Are you just watching from the sidelines or part of the current getting swept along? And if things keep speeding up, are you ready? 2 Peter 3:10 says it straight. "But the day of the Lord will come like a thief. The heavens will disappear with a roar. The elements will be destroyed by fire." Strong words, vivid pictures, not to scare, but to stress the surprise and urgency. These 7 events, set against those words, don't look random anymore. They're like constant knocking at the door, getting louder and faster. Nobody knows when the door will open, but it's clearly being knocked on. From the Bible's view, humanity's time isn't endless. It's measured not just in years, but in how people respond to the truth. And when truth gets ignored too long, time shortens itself. So the big picture from these 7 events isn't just a big news story. It's a serious reminder that we're living in a critical time where every choice carries more weight than usual. The final question still hangs there, and maybe you have to answer it yourself. If these really are the early signs of the end, will you keep living like there's plenty of time left? Or start taking a hard look right now? Those 7 news stories don't stand alone. They're connected like links in a chain, forming a clear, ongoing pattern that's picking up speed. From protests, violence, cheating, and hatred to the decline in morals, it all points in one direction. The world is entering the final stage of an old order. It's no accident that these events are happening almost at the same time, in different places, but sharing the same spirit of unease and chaos. When society loses its moral foundation, when people treat lies as normal and truth as something they can twist, that's when the signs start speaking up. The Bible never promised that the last days would be peaceful. On the contrary, the warning is written very clearly. 1 Thessalonians 5:2 says, "For you yourselves know full well that the day of the Lord will come, just like a thief in the night. No loud announcement beforehand, no giving people time to prepare the way they want." The scary part isn't the events themselves, but the indifference. When the signs appear and people still choose to turn away, still think there's plenty of time, that's what makes the delay the most dangerous. These 7 news stories aren't meant to spread fear, but to wake up consciences that have been asleep too long. If you've followed along this far, maybe a question has crossed your mind. What does this have to do with me? The answer is simple, because no one can stand outside the flow of these times. Every person has to choose how to respond to the truth that's slowly coming out. Turning back to the Lord isn't an act of weakness, it's being alert. It's when a person admits that this world isn't a completely safe place anymore, and only faith can help them stand firm through the stronger shakes ahead. If you feel this content has value, take a second to hit like and share the video with those around you. Who knows? Your one share might be the chance for someone to wake up in time, to think again before it's too late. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. What you've just seen is only the surface. In the next videos, we'll keep uncovering truths that are even more shocking. The pieces that mainstream media rarely dares to say outright. Thank you for sticking with it to the very end. I pray that each of us has enough awareness to recognize the signs, enough humility to turn back, and enough faith to stand strong, no matter how much upheaval lies ahead in the world.
Which gets underway first in the morning. We're going to start to see some snow arrive in the southwest by
What's happening to our Earth these days? Did you know that the sand dunes in Saudi Arabia are getting covered with a light blanket of snow? It's a world that's shaking things up, where nature isn't staying quiet anymore, but suddenly bursting out, turning everything upside down, out of rhythm, like some invisible hand is stirring the familiar foundations of our lives. From scorching deserts turning icy cold, night skies flashing with mysterious shapes, the sun wearing strange halos, to flocks of birds swirling as if guided by some divine command. Everything's happening fast and furious, like time itself is getting squeezed shorter. These things aren't just random. They're like God's gentle whispers echoing through nature, clear signs that connect into 7 pieces of a wake-up call. And if you're alert enough to listen, maybe it's time to look deeper before it's too late. So don't miss any of the messages coming up next, folks. Because who knows, these might be the very things God wants you to hear. Well, I just can't wait any longer. Let's dive right in and explore these 7 strange phenomena that have only happened recently, but were mentioned in the Bible thousands of years ago. We'll start right away with 1. The Lord's Judgment Fire at Yosemite National Park. We'll start with an amazing sight right here in America. Picture this. From the huge granite cliff of El Capitan, a bright orange river of fire suddenly pours down, glowing in the sunset, like the mountain is being lit from heaven above. No smoke, no ashes, no destruction, but it's enough to leave everyone staring in silence, enough to stir up a mix of wonder and awe in your heart. Yosemite National Park is already grand, but in this moment, it feels extraordinary. El Capitan, that rock wall over 3,000 feet high, standing tall like a giant altar, all of a sudden becomes the backdrop for something beyond words. Horsetail Fall, about 1,000 feet long, isn't just water anymore. When the sunset hits it at that rare, perfect angle, it changes, turns colors, lights up like glowing hot metal, flowing slowly like a cloud of fire released from the sky down to the earth. Scientists explain it as a rare optical illusion. According to weather.com and the National Park Service, the sunset light shines through the thin sheet of water, reflects off the granite surface, and creates the appearance of a fire waterfall. They call it firefall, a perfect mix of light, water, and viewpoint. It's not hot, doesn't burn, isn't dangerous. It all sounds pretty straightforward. But debate broke out fast. Some folks believe it's a sign from God, a gentle judgment of beauty, like the fire that doesn't consume in the Bible. They point to Joel 2:30, "And I will show wonders in the heavens above and signs on the earth below, blood and fire and billows of smoke." Others just shrug it off, saying it's only a light effect, and some even suspect the videos are edited or staged to play on emotions. What about you? If you saw that fire flowing down from the sky with your own eyes, what would you think? In Revelation 8-5, fire from the altar is thrown down to earth, with thunder, lightning, and shaking. The fire at Yosemite doesn't destroy, but it does wake you up. It doesn't burn the trees, but it burns away indifference. It's as if God is reminding us, judgment doesn't always come with ruin. Sometimes it comes in beauty you can't ignore. And if this is just a gentle fire to start, a warning in light and color, then ask yourself, what happens when God stops whispering? Because way up north, a bitter cold snowstorm is quietly building, ready to shake the soul of anyone who still thinks everything's just fine. 2. Gray skies and a snowstorm blanket. Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. An urgent alert went out from central Canada. Winnipeg is shut down under a fierce snowstorm, the sky turning dark in the middle of the day, temperatures dropping fast, and traffic pretty much frozen solid. What's going on with the weather around the world these days? Winnipeg, a city of over 700,000 people sitting in the wide plains of Manitoba, is no stranger to tough winters. But this time, things went way beyond normal. According to CBC and Global News, snow piled up to about 8 inches. Strong winds whipped right through the downtown area, forcing authorities to close schools, highways, and issue warnings to stay off the roads. The city got choked in a heavy blanket of cold white, like it was slowly sinking under it all. Videos spreading on YouTube and Instagram showed scenes hard to believe. Even though it was just morning, the sky was gray like dusk. Car headlights had to stay on in the thick fog. Snow covered every roof, every path. Winds howled through the streets like a long moan hanging in the air. Plenty of folks said it felt like the city was being swallowed up inch by inch. Weather experts quickly spoke up. They called it a powerful winter storm, caused by cold Arctic air clashing with moist air from the south. Citynews.ca said that while it was intense, it still fit into normal climate patterns. But even in those scientific reports, words like rare, extreme, hard to predict kept coming up, as if science itself was being cautious. On social media, debates exploded. Some said it's just changeable weather, an inevitable result of climate change. Others felt uneasy because these events are hitting so fast and all at once across the globe. And then there were quieter voices, slower ones, pointing to the Bible. Luke 21:25 talks about strange signs making nations anxious and confused. Haggai 2-6 warns that the Lord will shake both heaven and earth. So what do you think? Is this just random or a chilly reminder from above? No matter which side you're on, one thing's clear. This storm didn't just paralyze the streets. It hit people's sense of security right where it hurts. When nature gets harsh enough that the familiar turns strange, we're forced to stop and listen. It might just be snow, but it could also be a quiet knock at the door, warning of bigger shakes on the way. And while the northern cold still grips Winnipeg tight, the next question is already waiting somewhere else. If down here on the ground it's a blinding snowstorm, then up in the skies over Dubai, what's quietly hanging in the darkness there? 3. A strange sight in the night sky over Dubai. That night, the sky over Dubai wasn't quiet anymore. Through the heavy gray clouds, a purple bolt of lightning suddenly ripped across the sky, flashing bright like a tear from another world. In that quick moment, many folks swore they saw a black triangle shape, sharp-edged, pointing down toward the ground, just hanging up there high like a huge shadow watching the city below. No sirens, no quick explanation, just that chilly feeling running down your spine in the desert night. Dubai's used to big records and bright lights, but this time, the light was something unusual. From videos going around on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, you could see the Burj Khalifa, the tower that's 2,716 feet tall, getting hit hard by lightning, with greenish-purple clouds swirling around the top. Then, right when the lightning exploded the brightest, this odd shape showed up. No clear origin, not like a cloud, and not like any normal weather thing we know. Experts jumped in fast. Some said it was just a light illusion, maybe reflections from the building's LED lights mixing with storm clouds and the camera angle. Others thought it could be a rare plasma thing or some electrical effect when lightning hits super tall structures. Those explanations sound scientific enough, but they come off a bit too smooth, like they're dodging something harder to name. Because if it was just light and clouds, why were the edges of that triangle so clear? That fuzziness right there started the arguments. On social media, a lot of people believe it was a UFO, maybe even an alien craft, pointing back to old black triangle sightings from before. But there's another quieter view that turns to the Bible. Acts 2:19 talks about wonders up in the sky, and Luke 21:11 mentions great signs from heaven that scare folks. Could it be not aliens, but a sign from above? Something beyond what modern science gets. When faith goes up against reason, the question isn't just what is it, but what's it trying to tell us? The Bible never promised every sign would be easy to figure out. On the contrary, big warnings often come in ways that leave people unsettled, forcing them to choose, believe, or brush it off. And with the world keeping on shaking, these signs over Dubai's sky don't seem to stand alone. So what about you? When you look up at the night sky and see something you can't fully explain, will you go with the comforting words from science, or listen to that deep unease inside? Because if Dubai's sky was scary enough like that, then get ready. Whatever comes next, when the Middle East desert suddenly turns white with snow, it might make it hard to just turn away. 4. Snow falls, covering the golden sand dunes in UAE and Saudi Arabia. Some shocking news just came out of the Middle East. Snow has fallen in Saudi Arabia. It's hard to believe, isn't it? The desert, long known as a place of blazing sun and dryness, suddenly turned white, leaving the whole world stunned. According to reports from Arab news and videos spreading on Instagram, this rare event happened in areas like Al Jaf and Hale, where golden sand dunes stretch for thousands of miles. For hours, light snow fell steadily, enough to put a thin white layer over the usually scorching sand. In that moment, the desert didn't look like the one we know anymore. It felt like some strange tundra from another world. Local people shared tons of videos of this odd sight online, and viewers couldn't look away. The smooth, curving dunes now wore a pure white coat, with snowflakes drifting slowly in air that's normally filled with hot winds and dry dust. Kids ran around on the snow-covered sand, while adults stood quietly, filming and wondering without words. That contrast, hot and cold, dry and wet, gave a deep sense of things being turned upside down. Scientists were quick to explain it. Some weather experts, quoted by First Post, said it came from an unusual cold air mass moving into the Middle East, combined with enough moisture to make snow. In theory, it's possible. But debate started right away, since Saudi Arabia's desert is one of the driest places on Earth, and conditions like that rarely come together. That's why social media split into different views. Some see it as just an extreme weather event, a result of global climate change. Others feel uneasy because snow in the desert isn't just rare, it goes against the natural order completely. Then, people who follow the Bible spoke up, pointing to Isaiah 55:10, where rain and snow fall from heaven to change the earth, and Amos 9:5, about the Lord touching the land and making everything melt and shift. On top of that, many felt the line between science and faith getting blurry. Is this more than just weather? Maybe a sign, a warning that the familiar order is changing? When even the desert can't hold on to its true nature, what in this world is still certain? No matter how you look at it, one thing is clear: a feeling of unease is spreading. Snow on the sand doesn't just cool the air, it chills the belief that everything is still under control. And if the desert can turn white, get ready, because somewhere else, on the distant Alps, the sun is surrounded by a strange halo, like another sign waiting to show itself. 5. The sun's halo over the Austrian Alps. You know, there are moments when people just go quiet, not out of fear, but because they're moved by a beauty that's beyond words. Up in the majestic Alps of Austria, against the cold white snow, the sun suddenly appears not alone, but wrapped in a bright halo that's full, round, and solemn. The light isn't harsh. It's gentle, like a warm embrace from above, making anyone who sees it feel like they're standing in front of something holier than just nature. This phenomenon has been captured in the Austrian Alps, where peaks over 12,000 feet are covered in snow year-round, near weather stations like the Sonnenblick Observatory. From sites like weather.com to Laughing Squid, tons of photos and videos have spread showing the sun surrounded by a perfect ring of light, sparkling like it's carved from crystal. Against the pale blue sky, the halo stands out clear, grand yet pure, making the snowy mountain scene look like something from a vision. When you look closer, many folks describe the ring as shuttle-shaped, stretched horizontally, with extra bands of light on the sides, as if the sky is opening an invisible door. In the quiet of those high mountains, the moment isn't loud or fierce, but it touches people's hearts deeply. Have you ever wondered why some beauties show up just to make us pause and look up, instead of rushing to explain them? The Bible mentions signs in the sky as warnings and as shows of God's power. In Joel 2:31, it says the sun and moon will change before the great and terrible day of the Lord. And in Luke 21:25, Jesus talks about signs in the sun, moon, and stars. When this light appears over the Alps in a way that's beyond the usual, many believe it's not just an optical trick, but a gentle reminder of the Creator's presence in nature. Of course, science has its familiar explanation. Meteorologists call it sundogs, or a sun halo, formed when light passes through hexagonal ice crystals floating in the cold atmosphere. The bending and reflecting of light creates the ring and bright spots, a rare but known thing in high mountains and cold climates. That explanation sounds complete, but for many, it doesn't quite erase the sacred feeling the moment brings. Because science can describe how the light works, but it doesn't answer why these sights touch our souls so deeply. The halo over the Alps isn't threatening or a strong warning. It's like a soft reminder that God's glory is still here, quiet but clear, in a world that seems full of just numbers and data. And as that light slowly fades into the cold sky, one question lingers for those who saw it. If even the sun can wear a holy halo like that, What's waiting for us in the next sign when life on Earth starts to shift in unusual ways? 6. A flock of birds twisting like a feather at Ocean Shores, Washington. I was completely surprised and almost mesmerized by this sight. It wasn't the wind or the clouds, but thousands of birds suddenly bursting up from the horizon all at once, twisting, stretching, swirling like a living brushstroke. In just a few breaths, the whole sky was taken over by this strange shape. Soft, yet so precise it gave me chills, like someone was painting the heavens with life itself. Ocean Shores, Washington, is a familiar spot for migrating bird flocks. But that moment went way beyond anything I'd ever seen before. The sandpipers didn't scatter. They merged into one single mass, twisting and turning like a giant feather. When they tilted, the whole flock went dark like a moving shadow of night. And then, in a split second, the other side flashed silver, catching the sunlight and taking your breath away with its fragile yet powerful beauty. The videos recorded by Peggy Dolane and shared on YouTube, Rumble, or Twitter have gotten millions of views. Biologists quickly spoke up, explaining it's a group defense behavior, a survival strategy to confuse predators. According to them, each bird just reacts to the ones nearby, and that creates this amazing synchronized movement. The explanation sounds very scientific and reasonable, but standing there watching it, I couldn't help wondering, can simple instincts really produce something so perfectly shaped? On social media, opinions split fast. Some see it as a masterpiece of nature, proof of evolutionary smarts. Others feel uneasy, thinking the birds are drawing some kind of message in the sky. And plenty of folks believe it's a sacred sign, that God is calling the creatures together to warn mankind. What about you? When you see something like this, what hits you more, the biological wonder or a quiet call from above? The Bible talks about the connection between people's fate and all living things. In Hosea 4:3, the land mourns so much that the animals, birds of the sky, and fish in the sea waste away because of human sin. And in Revelation 19:17, birds are called to gather for a great day of the Lord. When that flock twisted over ocean shores like it was answering some unseen command, many believe it's not just instinct, but part of a bigger order we haven't fully understood yet. These images have really stuck with us deep down. That dance in the air, so beautiful and solemn, like it's etching a message. Nature isn't silent. We just have to stop and listen. And if the birds of the sky are already gathering and moving in unusual ways like this, what's waiting for us in the next sign, when the ground itself can't hold its peace anymore? 7. Ancient trees that look like people tied up and trapped. Have you ever stood quietly in front of an old tree and suddenly got a chill, like someone was staring back at you? In those quiet, ancient forests, where time seems to stand still, some tree trunks show shapes that make it hard to look away right away. In the dim light filtering through the leaves, a figure appears that's half real, half imagined, like a buried secret waiting to be named. In Wales, Africa, or many other old forests, there are trees hundreds or even thousands of years old that have strange, haunting shapes. The trunk bulges out, then tightens up, bending like a body that's been tied tight. Some lean way over to one side, as if they're collapsing from exhaustion. The rough knots look like twisted faces with messy hair hanging down, and the roots wrap around like ropes binding an invisible person. On Reddit and Facebook, lots of folks call them trapped souls trees, trees holding souls captive. Plenty of people say they get goosebumps standing near these trees, like they're more than just wood and roots. Some believe they're the souls of wrongdoers, cursed and locked inside the tree as a warning to others. Others think they're traces of ancient rituals, where people worshipped, made sacrifices, and left spiritual marks on nature. That eerie feeling doesn't come just from the shape, it's from the thought that something is being held back, not yet set free. The Bible mentions trees many times as symbols of life, but also of judgment. Isaiah 44:14 talks about people cutting down trees and using them however they want, as a reminder of power and responsibility. In Daniel 4:10, the image of a watcher coming down from heaven suggests divine oversight and judgment. When looking at these ancient trees that resemble trapped people, many see it as a picture of souls bound by sin, waiting to be freed or judged. Some researchers say it's just pareidolia, our brains turning random shapes into familiar ones. There are cases where trees grow around stone statues, wooden frames, or man-made objects, then over time, swallow them, creating distorted human forms. But if it's purely random, why do these shapes hit our deepest fear, being trapped, judged, and unable to escape? When you put this alongside the 6 signs before it, many folks believe these aren't just separate pieces. The shadow of a person bound in the tree trunk is a chilling reminder that human souls aren't always free, and the end times will reveal everything that's hidden. The question isn't really whether trees truly hold souls. It's about the message it stirs up in each of us. If these 7 events are like knocks on the door, from nature and from above, then the big question hanging there is, when that door really opens, will we step through wide awake or stay bound by our own indifference? So we've gone through all 7 strange things that have happened lately, and there's no doubt anymore, these are the clearest warnings ever from God to mankind about a huge event coming, the end times. Which one impressed you the most or grabbed your attention? Let us know in the comments below. 7 phenomena, 7 pieces of the puzzle. When you put them side by side, you no longer see just separate events. You see a big picture starting to take shape, one that's vast, dark, and shakes you right down to your soul. Fire that burns bright but doesn't destroy everything. Snow falling in the desert. Strange signs appearing in the sky that are hard to even describe. Weather going completely haywire. The sun wearing a weird halo. Huge flocks of animals gathering in impossible patterns. And finally, the image of a human soul trapped inside an ancient tree trunk. None of these things stand alone. They're all speaking the same language. The fire in Yosemite didn't destroy the park, but it sure burned deep into people's hearts, like a gentle but firm warning. The blizzard in Winnipeg didn't just stop traffic. It froze that old, familiar feeling of safety we all take for granted. Snow covering the deserts in Saudi Arabia and the UAE didn't just shock the world. It turned upside down the rules we thought could never change. Strange shapes flashing in the Dubai sky. The sun over the Alps with an otherworldly glow. Birds swirling in patterns like some invisible hand was guiding them. An old tree trunk shaped like a person bound and trapped. Each one touches that old, deep fear. The fear that we're not in control of anything. Do you see it? These things cover fire, water, ice and snow, air, light, living creatures, and even the soul. That's pretty much the whole order of creation. When every part of nature starts speaking up at once, it's hard to call it just random coincidence. That urgent feeling about time doesn't come from the clock on the wall. It comes from somewhere deep inside, telling us something is speeding up, passing the point of no return. In the Bible, Revelation 6:12 says it plain. When the Lamb opened the 6th seal, I looked, and there was a great earthquake. The sun became black, like coarse black cloth, and the full moon was red like blood. It's not just about destruction. It's about everything being shaken to the core. The sky isn't calm anymore. The earth isn't steady. The light isn't pure. When you read that verse today, with all this going on, it's hard not to get chills. Jesus himself warned us clearly in Matthew 24:3-8. He said, "You will hear of wars and rumors of wars. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. But all these are only the beginning of birth pains." The beginning, not the end. The scariest part isn't the disasters themselves. It's that we're just in the opening act, where the pain is only starting to spread. Have you ever wondered why these signs are showing up so thick and fast, one after another, all over the world? From America and Canada to the Middle East and Europe, no place is left out. This isn't just one country's story, or one climate pattern, or some local cycle. It's like a global puzzle, with every region holding a piece. When you put them together, the picture that comes out is impossible to ignore. A lot of folks will say it's just climate change, optical illusions, animal behavior, or statistical flukes. Science has explanations, and they're not wrong on the physical level. But the Bible never denied the laws of nature. What the Bible asks is, who's allowing those laws to be pushed to their limits? When the whole order gets turned upside down at the same time, could it be the Creator knocking louder on the door of our awareness? Are you feeling curious right now, or maybe a little uneasy? Do you think this is all just a string of coincidences, or signs put here on purpose? And if, just suppose, this really is a reminder from above, are we ready to listen? The most frightening part of this picture isn't the fire, the storms, or the darkness. It's indifference. The Bible says over and over that signs will come, but not everyone will recognize them. Like in Noah's day, people kept eating, drinking, and getting married right up until the flood came. It wasn't that they weren't warned, they just didn't believe the time was running out. When huge flocks of birds gather in the sky, they don't need to understand why. They just follow the signal. When that ancient tree holds the shape of a bound human figure, it doesn't speak, but the sight is enough to make your heart tremble. Nature is responding in its own way. What about us? Will we keep arguing that it's Photoshop, a trick of the eye, or a rare event? Or will we pause and ask, what if this isn't just for our eyes, but for our souls? These 7 phenomena are like 7 urgent drum beats. Each one doesn't end the story. It makes your heart beat faster, forces you to pay attention. They're not meant to spread blind fear. They're meant to wake us up. Because in the Bible, before every judgment, there's always a call to turn back. Time, as we feel it, keeps moving along. But in the language of these signs, time is closing in. The question isn't, when will this happen anymore? It's when it does, where will I be in the picture? Just watching, doubting, or spiritually ready to face it? 7 pieces are on the table now. The picture is clear enough that you can't look away. And if this truly is the Lord calling out in the middle of a chaotic world, will you scroll past it like another news story? Or will you stop, listen, and ask yourself, what is He calling me to do? The 7 events we've just looked at are no longer just random images meant to entertain or spark short-lived curiosity. When we look back at the whole journey, they stand out as clear signs, repeated over and over, coming from different parts of the world, but all pointing to the same single message. Humanity is being warned. This isn't some vague threat. It's a patient call to turn back to God before the final period truly closes the door on that chance. Nature has never lied. When fire appears but doesn't burn anything, when snow falls in the desert, when the sky shows shapes that make your heart tremble, these aren't meant to scare us. They're meant to wake us up. The Bible has always said that before every major turning point in history, God gives warnings ahead of time. The question isn't whether the signs are there, it's whether we're willing to stop and listen, or if we'll just keep turning our backs. The call here isn't about panic, and it's certainly not about despair. It's an invitation to wake up, to stay alert in our minds, in our faith, and in how we live each day. We pray not because we're afraid of tomorrow, but because we want to stand firm when that day comes. When people humble themselves and turn back to God, those signs that seem frightening can become guiding lights in the dark. You might be wondering, if this really is the end times, does everything just end in ruin? The Bible never says that. The end times aren't a full stop. They're a door opening to a brand new beginning. For those who listen, repent, and put their trust in God, it's the start of glory, justice, and eternal life, where there are no more tears or fear. Now, as this video comes to an end, I'm not asking you to believe everything right away. I just hope you'll pause for a moment and ask yourself, what did what you just saw make you think? How did it make you feel? What did it stir up inside you? Feel free to share your thoughts or feelings in the comments below. Every perspective, every personal story might be the piece that helps someone else wake up. If you think these messages have value, please hit the like button to show support and share the video so others can see it and think about it too. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any future messages. The journey of understanding these signs isn't over yet. Thank you for taking the time to listen, reflect, and join me on this. In this ever-changing world, I hope you find real peace, clear thinking, and lasting hope in the one who is still patiently calling humanity through every sign in nature. What's happening to America right now? If this is some kind of warning, what is God trying to tell us? Those questions hit hard, like a scream in the middle of the night. When nature gets furious, storms rage in, and it feels like they're about to swallow up the whole country. Can you feel it? That uneasy feeling creeping in? Like something really big is coming? From the tornadoes ripping through parking lots in Dallas, tossing cars around like toys, the sky over Iowa turning dark and eating up the light, twisters roaring like monsters, cranes in Houston getting flung around like feathers, Miami shaking as people get swept away by the wind, New Orleans getting hit with violent shaking from ground to sky, strange sounds in Kansas like metal scraping along, and in North Carolina, familiar roads turning into raging floodwaters. These moments aren't just random accidents. They're whispering a scary message from above. But what is that message? Let's look closer at each storm, because this might be the final roar before the end of days. 1. A tornado dragging cars around like toys in a parking lot. Just picture a fierce wind suddenly flipping over ordinary cars that seem harmless, tearing apart the calm in just a few breaths, turning a familiar parking lot into a deadly playground. It all happened so fast that nobody had time to react, like a breaking news story that exploded out of nowhere, where nature doesn't warn anymore, but strikes without mercy. And right then, we start to really feel one thing. We're smaller than we like to think. Dallas, Texas, a place that's no stranger to tornadoes, got hit hard when huge wind columns swept through. Wind speeds were recorded hitting up to 200 miles per hour at times, strong enough to bend every safety limit we'd trusted. Those parking lots, tied to everyday life, in a split second became the battleground between people and power from the sky. The tornado charged in like a missile, sweeping away cars weighing nearly 2 tons, lifting them off the ground and sliding them hundreds of feet as if they had no weight at all. Windshields shattered, bodies twisted, metal crashing made sharp, panicked noises that echoed like hopeless cries for help. When you see those images, nobody needs to explain. This wasn't a normal wind anymore. That moment left witnesses frozen, hearts pounding, the usual sense of safety completely gone. In the chaos, a quiet thought creeps in. If everyday things like cars can be dragged around so easily, where do we stand against this power? There's something beyond science, beyond plain logic. The Bible talked about days like these. Matthew 24:7-8 says, "For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines and earthquakes in various places. But all these things are only the beginning of the birth pains." And Luke 21:11 adds, "There will be great earthquakes, and in various places famines and pestilences, and there will be terrors and great signs from heaven." Those old words now sound like they're coming alive in today's world. Of course, some say it's all just climate change, random coincidence. But when these events keep happening one after another, breaking every record, that explanation starts to waver. Ignoring the spiritual side of these things sometimes feels like trying to close your eyes to an obvious warning. After the tornado, what's left isn't just mangled cars. It's a cold message to a proud humanity. We don't control everything. This is a wake-up call, urging repentance and turning back while there's still time. And if cars flying like toys is just the start, what more will the darkening sky ahead swallow up? 2. A regular person pulls over at a rest stop because the storm up ahead is too dangerous. The gray sky rushed in like the darkness of hell, forcing folks to stop and hide in the growing terror that swelled up every second. One person on a quiet road had to pull over, not from being tired, but because a solid black wall was bearing down ahead. In that moment, we realize there are times when our survival instinct tells us clear. Going on means disappearing. Iowa, that peaceful rural Midwest area, suddenly became the center of nature's fury. This is where tornadoes often form. But this time, the air felt different, heavy and biting cold. Winds howled at speeds up to 150 miles per hour, turning the space around into invisible blades that cut right into skin and into a person's deepest fears. Even though it was still morning, the sky turned pitch black like a moonless night, swallowing all the light completely. Sheets of aluminum, road signs, metal roofing got ripped apart by the tornado and flew through the air like the fangs of a hunting monster. The roaring sound went on without stopping, deep and fierce, as if the whole sky was clenching its angry jaws, gobbling up everything for miles around. The person taking shelter could only hold their breath, feeling the ground shake lightly under their feet, heart pounding so hard it hurt. In those seconds, you don't need anyone to tell you how thin the line is between living and dying. When nature stops just getting worse and turns outright hostile, we suddenly feel how small and scary that makes us. The Bible has described scenes just like this. Revelation 16:18 says, "There were flashes of lightning, rumblings, peals of thunder, and a severe earthquake. No earthquake like it has ever occurred since mankind has been on earth. So tremendous was the quake." And Isaiah 29:6 warns, "You will be visited by the Lord Almighty with thunder and earthquake and great noise, with storm and tempest and flames of a devouring fire." Those ancient words now mirror clearly in Iowa's gloomy sky. Weather experts call this extreme weather events, trying to fit it into charts and scientific models. But when the details match the Bible's prophecies in such a chilling way, those plain explanations don't comfort much anymore. There are things not just for measuring, but for recognizing and waking up to. Through the darkened sky and howling winds, it seems like the Lord is speaking, not in a gentle voice, but with power that makes people stop and listen. This is a warning about the coming day of judgment, sounding amid the black clouds and thunder. And if the wind monster roared like that, how will those huge cranes get torn apart in the next wave of wrath? 3. At a construction site, aluminum sheets get blown around. The savage wind ripped through a structure that seemed unbreakable, bending all human plans and turning steel into something fragile. It wasn't just a forecast or a what if anymore. That moment hit like a punch, showing the hard truth. Things people build can come crashing down in an instant. Houston, Texas, an industrial hub along the Gulf Coast, where concrete, steel, and modern engineering were thought to be tough enough to hold up. But this storm didn't play by the usual rules. Winds ramped up to 180 miles per hour, sweeping across the ground like an invisible saw blade, testing every weld, every support beam, every bit of faith in man-made strength. Aluminum panels from roofing and walls tore loose, spinning in the air like dry leaves in a whirlwind. Then something nobody expected happened. 2 huge cranes, each weighing up to 500 tons, got lifted by the wind and flipped over as easily as feathers. Metal crashed and snapped, making loud, piercing noises that sounded like the earth itself groaning as its limits got shattered. In the middle of all that, it's hard not to feel a chill. Machines that stood for power and progress suddenly looked completely helpless. Seeing it makes you realize one thing clearly: not everything is under human control, no matter how far technology goes. The Bible talks about signs like this. Joel 2:30 says, "I will show wonders in the heavens and on the earth, blood, fire, and columns of smoke." And Luke 21:25 goes on to warn, "There will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars. And on the earth, nations will be in anguish and perplexity at the roaring and tossing of the sea." Those pictures aren't just on the page anymore. They're right there in the twisted steel and dust. Some folks